I really just wanted to see if I could get New to be in the video so you guys could see my other cat. Because I know Martha's the one that is more social, but here's New. Here's New. Okay. Shall we resume? I guess that's just a question for me. Okay, here we go. So we've gone over the rubric. This is going to feel like I really am kind of going over stuff that perhaps some of us are really ready for and others might not be. But hang in there with me. The next thing that we're going to talk about is your thesis statement. There are lots of great things about the thesis statement on pages 387 to 388 in the Norton. But here's the stuff that I want to think about with you. A sharp thesis statement does so much work for you. Basically, once you establish your thesis statement, part of me feels like the essay can potentially write itself, because if you know what you're supporting, you know what you're saying, you know what you're writing to, you're good to go. Most students in the past that have had trouble with this final essay is because they think they can write their thesis statement last or like write to it, like work with their sources and then figure out what their main claim is. That's really hard to do. And it involves a lot more editing than I think anyone really wants to do. So I'd say figure out your thesis first, especially if you're making an argument. If you're exploring, which you'll see in a minute the difference, you've got a little more leeway to figure out what your main claim is, but still knowing that as you're choosing what parts of sources to quote from and what's most relevant, super, super important. Back to this slide. When drafting a thesis, ask your research question, flip it to make a statement based on your research, and then narrow it. I've been asking you to think about a research question because that allows you an automatic thesis setup. One example from the Norton that I really do like is this. I've numbered it 1, 2, 3. This example to show you the question, the basic thesis, and then a more specific thesis. So here, what can be done to prevent famine in East Africa? A thesis here that the student chose to do is the most recent famine in Somalia could have been avoided if certain measures had been taken. So automatically, they're narrowing down East Africa to Somalia as an example of how to prevent famine, okay, in their thesis. So probably most of their sources were about that specifically. So you see some narrowing there, but that statement directly answers the question in a sense. The third move there, you see the student kind of list some of the ways in which famine could have been avoided if certain measures had been taken. I don't want you, though, to assume that because some of these thesis examples list 3 ways or 3 things that you should be choosing 3 examples in your thesis statement, because that gets us very dangerously close to that traditional 5-paragraph style essay. So watch out for that. And this is something that I like to talk about as an example of what not to do. And I've written, do not do this, no, in red, because I've shown this slide in the past to students in class, and they think that this is what they're supposed to do. I'm like, no, this is proof that this is not what you're supposed to do. Normally you're taught, particularly in high school, that hierarchy is the best way to organize information, but it's not. And especially with these complex essays that we're trying to write. So I just want to show you, traditionally, often what you've done maybe in the past is your intro and your thesis up front, first paragraph, saying like, China is a really big country. And then your 3 ways of supporting the fact that it's really big are the population is big, the geographic size is big, the economic dreams are big. And you have 1 paragraph on each of those things. That's not an argument. That's not even a thesis. Like, what question would you be asking for your thesis to be China is a really big country? Like, how big is China? I don't know. I just think this is a funny example from a different textbook that I like to teach with, because it shows, excuse me, it shows the issues and kind of ridiculousness of the traditional 5-paragraph essay that you're taught to write. I'm not saying that what you learned in high school is like all wrong. You had to learn those things to be able to get here and to write more complexly. But now at this point, drop that, okay? Drop that. It also doesn't mean that each of your sources are going to get their own individual paragraph, or that you're going to copy and paste from your annotated bibliography. You're going to work to synthesize and integrate your source material. That's why we're taking the rest of the semester to work on this paper. That's why you probably can't write an effective one in just one sitting. If you want to take that as a challenge, go ahead. But taking time and space to really make this awesome, it's a better outcome. The next thing I want to kind of call attention to is the fact that research writing is recursive. It's a fun word, mainly because the term recursive, I believe, is still in our course objectives. It's like realizing that this is a recursive process, and recursive means characterized by repetition, okay? From the late Latin, which word nerd here, from the late Latin, it means to run back, to return. So even though you have done all of this research work, please feel free to run it back, to return, to figure out if there are holes that you need to fill with different research, other research, particularly if your question has shifted since you've been doing the research. Feel free to make adjustments. Just reach out to me so I can help you format those. But research writing is recursive, okay? Repetition, run it back, like go back to the drawing board with your research, both in the academic databases and online, especially now. Maybe now that everyone's kind of self-quarantined, there's more time to write, so you might find some more cool stuff about your topic. Okay. I'm sorry, I sound exhausted, and I'm realizing that when you all watch this, you'll be able to pause, take your time, so really I should chill out. I'm going to chill out. It's going to be okay. As you're deciding about how, what shape your essay is going to take, really you can think about it in two different directions. You can plan to write an argument, or you can plan to write an exploratory essay. I will say writing an argument will give you kind of more opportunity to develop a skill set that you'll need heading forward in your other classes. This is kind of the normal thing that you need to know how to write. But an exploratory essay is also interesting and fun to do. An argumentative essay, number 1 on this little list here, is persuasive. This is you wanting your readers to think or to do something about your topic, okay? An exploratory essay, number 2 on this list, is helping your readers to appreciate what you find interesting or complicated about your topic. So this is if something is new to you and you don't even really know fully how you feel about it, but you wanted to know about it more, an exploratory essay is the way to go. Rather than making an argument one way or the other, especially even after, if you're doing your research and you still don't feel fully like an authority because you're just discovering some of this stuff, an exploration might be most appropriate for you. Regardless, you need to pick whether you are arguing or exploring. There is no combination. If you're wanting to do a combination, then you're probably just making an argument. But an exploration is very much different from an argument. And again, based off of the structures here of what you want, right? What you want, what your purpose is, in a sense, what you want to be the outcome of your essay. Okay, do you want your readers, meaning the people in the class and me, do you want us to think or do something, or help us appreciate something?